This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. I have 2:35, so I'd like to begin the meeting. If Nick Bolsonaro comes in during the meeting, I'll turn the chair over to him. Let me bring up the agenda. And the first item is introduction. I will go off the participants list, and you can just say here, and so we can know you're there. Myself, Brad Harris, Montachusett Planning Commission. Brian Doherty.
Present.
Sherry Bean.
Here.
Alice Lipidoll.
Here.
Dick Kilhart.
Here.
Elizabeth Faxon. Elizabeth, are you there?
She just typed in the chat box that she's here and has the microphone.
Okay. George Cahaley.
Present.
George Snow.
Here.
Janet Tice.
Here.
Matthew Brenner.
I am here.
Paula Simmons.
Here.
Sarah Bradbury.
Here.
And then caller 01. I had as
Roger Hoyt.
Roger Hoyt. Okay.
Oh, here, Ashburnham.
Okay. Caller 02, Dick Mackey.
Correct. I'm here.
And caller 03, Guy Corpusero. Nothing. Oh, and then I know Guy's out there somewhere. And then we also have Kayla Kress from MRPC.
Here.
Okay. Did I miss anyone? All right. Next on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments anyone would like to make before we begin? No? All right. Then we will move on to the next item. And that is approval of the May 12th, 2021 minutes. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at them. Are there any comments or suggestions or edits for the minutes? No? All right, hearing none. I'll just get the consensus of the group to approve the minutes as presented. If you have any objections, just state them. State them now. If not, I'll assume it's we have consensus to approve. No objections? Great. So the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is report of the nominating committee. And that involves Dick Mackey, who is the chairman of the nominating committee, who met just before this meeting. So Dick, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Brad. I want to thank Brad for providing the committee with some information, and also the other committee members who were Richard Liberatore from Fitchburg and Guy Campabisiero from let's see,
Winchington.
Okay. Winchington, correct. I got it. All right. The results of our work involved getting as many participants to the meetings as possible, and so we basically selected people who have been regular participants and who represent a fairly wide spectrum of our towns, going from a fairly large community like Fitchburg to a smaller community like Athol, and then to a smaller community still like Winchington. So I think we have the people that we would like to nominate, and they include the following. Our current vice chair is Nicholas Balsanetta, and Nick is from Fitchburg, and we would like to move him up to be the future chair of this committee. We would also like to recommend Dick Kilhart from Athol as the vice chair, and willing to serve as secretary is Guy Corbaciro. Those are our three nominees. As Brad has mentioned on several occasions, we'll have a chance to review all of these members and add to any from the floor at our next meeting. Brad, is there anything else that we need to attend to?
No. We can also accept nominations from the floor tonight. So if there's anyone out there who would like to volunteer for a position, just let me know. And also in between now and the next meeting, you can email me and we can talk about the positions and if you're interested also. I'll just say that of the three positions, the one with the most work is the chair, because they basically host meetings like we are doing today. The vice chair will only step in case the chair can't make a meeting, and the secretary's only real responsibility is signing off on the vote of the election once it's held. We as a staff do all the record keeping. We take the notes, we take the meeting minutes, and put all those together in all the mailings. So it's really not the traditional secretary role that you might have with some other organizations. But the main purpose is to have at least two other individuals who could possibly step in to be chair if something if we need them in case of an emergency. So again, if you have any questions, let me know, and if you'd like to volunteer for one of the positions, also let me know, and I will let everybody else know of the nominations. And the election will be held at the next meeting, July 14th. Any questions? No? All right, thank you, Dick and Richard and Guy for volunteering for the nominating committee.
Well,
With that being said, the next item on the agenda is RAISE, Discretionary Grant Application Program, a discussion of a notice of funding opportunities for discretionary grants to the Rebuilding America Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity grants. And that is going to be me, unfortunately. There's a one-page or a two-page handout that went with the mailing.
Hey, how you doing? Good. Got the lady? Yes, I do.
All right. The U.S. Department of Transportation published a notice of finding, basically saying that there's going to be $1 billion available in fiscal year 2021 for discretionary grant funding. And again, it's through what they're calling the RAISE grants, Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. It's an application process. Funding will be evaluated based on merit criteria that includes safety, environmental, sustainability, quality of life, economic competitiveness, state of good repair, innovation, and partnership. And they put some limits on the maximum award being $25 million. No more than $100 million can be awarded to a single state, and up to $30 million will be awarded to planning grants, which is what piques the interest of us here at the Planning Commission. So this handout talks about the different program, about the program and its availability, and how to has some links for getting some further information on it. What I'm going to go through now is this was a presentation that was done by Federal Highway and the U.S. Department of Transportation. I've taken some things out that don't pertain to us or get a little too deep into it, and I'll just give you a run through of what the grants are about and what we think might be applicable for us. So basically, what we're working on is a July 12, 2021 deadline for putting an application together. We have to apply through grants.gov, and here we are at the Planning Commission, we've been sitting around sort of throwing around ideas as to what we might want to apply for. The basics of the RAISE grant is $1 billion available for multimodal merit-based grant program for surface transportation infrastructure. And basically, some of you may remember the Tiger and Build grant applications that were available in past years. It's the same type of process and the same type of grant program. I believe the Tiger Award was given a number of years back to the Montachusett Regional Transit Authority. It got them some.
Hey, how you doing, Cynthia?
It got some funding for them to do some work for Wachusett Station and some of the tracks out in that area. So what are the characteristics of the grant program? It should have significant local or regional impact. Not
I'm sorry.
public entity eligibility, encourages partnership. Not more than 50% of funds will be awarded to urban and rural areas, and $30 million will be eligible planning.
Excuse me.
Pre-construction activities.
Could we ask that person to mute their microphone? It's very hard to hear your presentation
Okay.
with the background noise.
Guy, can you hear me? Let me see if I can do anything on that for a second. If I can mute him myself. Guy was called it. No, I don't see him on here now. I think he might have left. So, and I don't hear him, so we'll see if it comes back. I'll try and do something. Back to where I was, right here. All right, so these are the characteristics of the grant program. Down below the last bulleted item, we're talking about $30 million for eligible planning and pre-construction activities, including at least $10 million to areas of persistent poverty. This is an item that USDOT's put together, and they've defined this, and we'll get to that in just a second, as to what that definition is. Some of the basics of the grants: who can apply, MPOs, which means Montachusett MPO, other public subdivisions of state or local governments, which I'm assuming apply to RPAs, and what's eligible. For us, the most important are the highway, bridge, or other road projects, and then planning and pre-construction activities for any of the above. So that's where we're concentrating our efforts on right now. Some of the basics of the grant: eligible costs and share and match. The federal cost share will be up to 80% in those defined urban areas. The federal cost can be up to 100% in the rural areas and in planning grants in areas of persistent poverty. So that would mean there would be no local match required for the program. Minimum awards: there's no minimum for planning grants, so that's where we can look to try and develop something, and we don't have to worry about trying to develop a $10 million planning grant program. Urban and rural definitions, which are a little bit different from what we're typically used to. The urban they're defining as urbanized area with population greater than 200,000. And rural is for all other projects, urbanized areas with a population less than 200,000 or outside an urbanized area, including an urban cluster. Now, the Montachusett region has some urbanized areas. We have Fitchburg, Leominster, Gardner, parts of Athol, parts of Clinton, and so forth. But our total population for the region is less than 200,000. So I'm reading this as being that the region itself could possibly be defined as a rural area. And that's something we'll check on with the USDOT to make sure we're reading that right. Let me just show you a quick map that was put together by our GIS department. This shows the urban areas in our region, as well as the areas of persistent poverty. And I'll get to that definition in a second. But the red areas are all urbanized areas. These are mostly the Boston and Worcester urbanized areas that reach into our region. And they are over, obviously, 200,000 in population. But the majority of us in our region, I guess, would be declared a rural for the parts of this program. Next, areas of persistent poverty. What is that? The definition affects only planning grants applications. That's at least $10 million in planning grant funds will be located in or are directly benefit an area of persistent poverty. Now, the project is located in an area of persistent poverty if, I won't read the first one, it relates to counties, but the census tract in which the project is located has a poverty rate of at least 20% as measured by the 2014 to 2018 5-year data series available for the American Community Survey, or ACS, from the Census Bureau. And that's what we defined as. DOT's already gone through and identified census tracts in areas that meet this criteria, and that's what we have in this map. These green areas in Gardner, Fitchburg, and Leominster are identified as areas of persistent poverty. So we're looking at, if we're looking at some planning grants, we're looking to see if we can put something in one of these areas to score higher and to directly impact those particular areas. What projects compete well? Well, project demonstrates a clear, direct, significant, positive local or regional impact, and it has specific timelines for completion. I believe the elsewhere in this, the deadline for the obligation of funds is, I believe it's September 30th, 2024. So the funds have to be all spent out or obligated by that deadline. So when we're looking at projects as well as planning grant applications, we're looking that as the final drop dead deadline for obligating all of the funds. Other things that we have to consider is that it results in good paying jobs, improved safety, and it explicitly considers climate change and racial equity in the planning and design stage. So those are two areas that need to be addressed specifically in the grant applications. For planning grants, what activities can they fund? Pre-construction activities, and this is the key, that do not directly lead to construction. Design, engineering, local or regional plans, statewide studies, etc. So when we look at this, we have developed a possible application that's pre-construction. It's looking at environmental and design feasibility. But the question is whether it actually leads to construction. It's not something that we have to have, has to be clearly defined by the grant. We can do a feasibility study to see if things can eventually lead to some type of construction. So I think that's key for one of the project proposals we're looking at. This is the end of their presentation, but for us in the MRPC, we've been kicking around some ideas of what might be applicable or might be candidates for us to apply. So we've identified possibly 2 planning grants. The first, let me just enlarge this a little bit. The first we're kind of calling an environmental and design feasibility study of a new interchange to Route 2 at South Athol Road in the town of Athol. And our purpose would be to hire a consultant to examine the environmental and physical impacts related to the development of a new interchange to Route 2. The final outcome being they would determine if such an interchange could be constructed based upon any environmental or design constraints needed for the project. Now, we had done a study probably 2 years ago, pre-COVID, on a particular interchange at Route 2. We came to the conclusion that something was feasible, but we did not get into the environmental issues that are out there or the design criteria for the size of the interchange and those kind of things. So we're looking to see if we could get a consultant on board who can examine those, do some surveying, basically to see if there are any environmental impacts out there that have to be addressed or might prevent an interchange being constructed, and then look at the physical requirements for the interchange. What would be the grade, the slopes, the widths of the lanes, and so forth, and if that could be actually implemented in that area. That would then answer that question for the town and for the region: can this interchange actually be constructed and implemented to help the town of Athol and the region in not only safety access, but mobility and relieving some of the congestion in the downtown area. And we hope that if the construction is found to be possible, the consultant will then move on to the design initiation phase, working on what the layout might be and working with MassDOT and Federal Highway to come up with some preliminary designs for the interchange, and also to work with the town and MassDOT to initiate a project through the TIP process, so that if it is feasible, we start the ball rolling on trying to get some funding to actually construct the new interchange. The second planning grant we started looking at and discussing, we're calling Montachusett Region Climate Vulnerability Assessment and Climate Change Resilience Plan. And again, our purpose here would be to hire a consultant to gather, review, and update any and all infrastructure climate vulnerability assessments within the Montachusett region. Now, Mass Government has a website where they've got information up on vulnerability plans and resilient plans throughout the Commonwealth. And a lot of our communities have something developed so far. Some just focus on buildings, some are focused on other areas of infrastructure that might be impacted. Some are just assessment plans, and some are full resilience plans on how to address and work with these. What we'd like to do is to get all of our communities up to like the same level with an assessment plan. And then once we've reached that level, to move on to start developing individual resilience plans for each community or a region-wide climate change resilient plan. So this planning grant application would involve all of our communities, would involve us hiring a consultant to review what's already been done, sort of critique it, and bring everybody onto the same level and same playing field so that they can develop these resilient plans and possibly be eligible for additional funds and other grant opportunities coming down the road. So those are the two planning grants that we're going to be putting applications together for this RAISE program. And in terms of actual projects, the only one we really looked at that really we thought made sense, and this was based on those areas of persistent poverty, was in Leominster, the reconstruction and rehabilitation of Route 12. As you may recall from past discussions on the tip, the project goes from the Sterling Town line to approximately Tossey Street in Leominster, about 2.6 miles. Because of the size of the project and the cost, which right now is estimated anywhere from $13 to $14 million, we've had to split this project out over 3 federal fiscal years, 2024, 2025, and 2026. And this is within the recently endorsed 2022 to 2026 tip. So as we're stating, we're looking at this, the areas is located near an area of persistent poverty, as identified by federal highway. Let me just bring that map back up one more time. And I'll zoom in just a bit and see if I can get it over here. This is, I don't know if you can see, but Route 12 coming into Leominster as it goes all the way down into town. But this area of persistent poverty is located somewhat near Route 12, and anything that's done to Route 12, I think, is going to impact accessibility and congestion and improve issues for basically the entire section of Leominster, as well as Sterling and parts of Lancaster. So it does have a big impact on the traffic network in these communities. So that is why we thought, because of its location, it might be worthwhile to see if that could be a project grant application, which goes through a different process than the planning grant applications. We're not sure. We have to ask some questions, I think, of DOT on this thing. But if we were able to get this project funded through the RAISE grants, basically it would free up target funding on our TIPs in 2024, 2025, and 2026. As I said, because the cost was so large, it's been spread out over 3 fiscal years. So it would free up about $11 million in 2024, $1.6 million in 2025, and about $1.3 million in 2026. That allow us to bring up some additional projects that right now are squeezed off because of the cost of this project. So that's our thinking at the MRPC on whether we can get this project into the application process. So that briefly is the RAISE grant program and what we are looking at the Planning Commission. Again, we will be adhering to the July 12th deadline by putting some applications together. Staff's going to be working on compiling these over the next few weeks, and hopefully we can get them in time, and we can see if we can get some additional funds brought into the region for helping us plan and helping us get some projects completed for the region as a whole. With that, are there any questions or any other comments people like to make regarding this RAISE project?
Can I just ask a question? This is Alice Libdahl from Hubbardston.
Sure.
Has anybody ever thought, I'm thinking of the Athol Exchange, I go there all the time. Have you thought about adding widening of Route 2 beyond where it narrows as a possible project?
That would be a planning grant feasibility study. That might be something to examine.
Just a thought, because
Yeah.
it does go down there fairly dangerously at times, actually.
From the Athol Phillipson line heading west
Right.
through Athol and all the way out to the Orange area. Yeah, and this interchange would also be within the within that stretch there, where it is 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. That's a point. Maybe we can look at the South Athol Road application planning grant and maybe expand the feasibility study of it too, just to answer that question. I know there might be some environmental issues along the way. There's the lake just before the Route 202 interchange that might prevent something from actually happening, but we can look at it. I think that's interesting. We'll take a look at it and see if that may be something to add to what we're thinking about doing.
Thanks.
Anybody else with any other questions? No? Okay. If you do have questions later, feel free to give us a call at the Planning Commission. We'd be more than willing to talk about it. Next up on the agenda is ADA Public Right-of-Way Surveys Data Collection Application, a review and demonstration of various components of PROWA app. That is this information here, and I believe, George, are you starting off on this?
That's the wrong thing you got up there, Brad.
No, that's one of them. I also got this one.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks. Yeah, this is the presentation.
All right, so go ahead. I'll tell me when, and I'll switch the slides.
I don't think you're going to need to, but so all right. Today we're going to present an overview of our ADA Pro Surveys Data Collection app. We developed this app basically because to undertake this type of data collection is a tremendous amount of effort and cost. And this app we developed so that our community and our region won't have to develop an app or rely on an outside source to collect their data. And we're here to assist the community in using this app when they are ready to use it. We can provide training on the app, and we can go through the questions if they want to know more about the questions and so on. So we want this tool to be used by the communities to do this type of data collection. And I believe after our experience with doing 3 transition plans in our region, that data collection is the most intense portion of undertaking those type of plans. And that's why we did this app, so that we can work with communities to collect their data. And most of the apps out there are proprietary in nature, so there's a lot involved with that. So in this app, there's 4 different surveys that we're looking at: sidewalk, curb ramp, crosswalk, and APS. APS stands for Accessible Pedestrian Signals. Next. We're going to have 2 presenters today. Myself, I'll be discussing the surveys, and then we're going to do a live demo. It's going to be done by Kayla Kress today. Jason couldn't be with us, so Kayla's going to do a live demo of the app and how to use it and so on, and how to download the apps and all that. So we'll look at, she'll be discussing that. Next. There's several purposes, I believe, to this type of data collection. Primarily is to collect and create an inventory of the existing conditions of a community's existing pedestrian facilities within the PRO, possible future ADA letting activities. Again, that can lead up to the development of a transition plan. It can be incorporated into a transition plan that you already have for your buildings or whatever, or it could be just a PRO transition plan as well. But the data can also be used to be included in a roadway project development plan that you're working on, or it could be included in your payment management program if you have one up and running. And it can also be used for writing grant application. What's great about this data is that it's quantitative data. It's not just descriptive data. You'll actually have quantitative data to put into your studies and your plans, as opposed to just a description of what it looks like. And the survey questions are all based on ADA Pro compliance guidelines. If you look at the questions, you'll see they're reflected from the compliance guidelines. Next. And there's basically two components to the app. First, it utilizes ArcGIS Survey 123 for Android and mobile and Apple mobile devices. The app totally replaces paper-based data collection. You no longer have to take out reams of paper out into the field to do that type of data collection, and you don't have to try to keep track of all that paperwork. And also, the data is immediately available in ArcGIS. You're on the field, you collect the data, you go back to your office, and if you have ArcGIS, you can view it after you've completed it. Jason developed a manual which provides a step-by-step guide in the operation of the app and how to use the app. You know, it shows you how to download the apps. It shows you the steps it takes to run the app, and so on. And that's what Kayla will be presenting later. The other component contains 4 surveys that I mentioned earlier. It contains 4 surveys that, for the 4 types of pet facilities, and there's 101 questions in these surveys. The first survey is a sidewalk survey. It has 30 questions that cover location, length, material, width, and so on. And there's 2 sample questions here. Do vertical discontinuities exist? If they do, you answer yes. And then you move on to the next question. That's where you input the data about, concerning the discontinuities. Next. The next is the crosswalk survey. It contains 20 questions that address existence or non-existence, location, facility type, whether it's at an intersection or a mid-block location or a roundabout, and all the other items listed here. And here's some sample questions. Does a median exist at the intersection mid-block location? And if it does, you answer yes, and then it leads you into answering the 3 questions that are listed here. The next is the APS survey, or again, Accessible Pedestrian Signal Survey. It has 15 questions that address existence, non-existence, location, signal push button, and obstructions. And here's a simple question. Is a pedestrian signal push button mounted on a pedestrian signal? If it is, you click on yes, and it leads you to answer the next 10 questions that pertain to the push button, signal push button. Next. And finally, is the curb ramp survey. I'll be spending most of my time on this one because this is the live demo that Kayla will be doing later. And it's also the most robust survey. There are 36 questions here in the survey. Again, it addresses existence or non-existence, location, curb ramp type, and so on. It also includes curb ramp elements that are presented in the diagram below. You see the transition ramp. Curb ramp can have a transition ramp as well as a level landing area, and the flares and so on. Next, the completion of the survey depends upon answering the first question. And if you may not need to complete the survey if no curb ramp exists, and that's addressed in the first question. Is a vertical curb blocking the pedestrian path of travel? If there's a vertical curve, there is no curb ramp. So the answer is no. The only question that you need to answer, a survey needs to answer, is the location. You want to have that location. So just in case later on the community wants to add a curb ramp to that location, which is probably going to be needed. There should be a curb ramp along all pedestrian facilities. So there are 20 questions that require taking a measurement. And we'll look into that a little bit further later as well. And there are 6 survey questions that are dependent on a yes response to a previous question. Next. And here's a sample question of that. Does a transition ramp exist on the curb ramp? If it doesn't, you don't need to measure the running slope of that transition, of that area. Because if there's no transition ramp, it's going to be level with the sidewalk. So you don't have to answer those 2 questions. For the curb ramp survey, I developed a curb ramp data collection guide that is provided to the surveyor to guide him through the use of the survey. And I also developed guides for each of the other 3 surveys so that they're available for the surveyor. Next. Now we're looking at the survey guides. The purpose of the survey guides is to provide at-office and in-field recommendations and instructions to the surveyors who will be conducting the data collection on how to prepare for conducting the data collection, how to operate the app, and how to conduct the surveys. And all surveys cover similar topics, but they're applied differently, of course, because each survey is different. With the exception of the sidewalk data collection app, it's the only one that provides at-office recommendations that the other 3 don't. And we'll discuss that in the next slide. The limitations of the guides are they do not provide recommendations for every question in the survey. Otherwise, the documents would be very large. It would be kind of hard to deal with it while you're in the field using the app. It also assumes that the surveyor knows how to use the measuring instruments that are needed to conduct a survey. There are 3 tape measure, electronic level, and a measuring wheel are needed to conduct the surveys. Next. And here's what the at-office recommendations are for the sidewalk data collection guide. Provides a method for reviewing your existing sidewalk network so that in case you might need to update it before you go out into the field. You want to do this before you do your data collection. You want to be sure you have an accurate representation of your sidewalk network. It also recommends developing a strategy for conducting the systematic survey it also recommends developing a strategy for conducting a systematic sidewalk location by sidewalk location survey. So you know your endpoint, and you know your start point, and you know your endpoint before you begin your survey data collection. It also recommends installing ArcGIS Survey 123 and downloading all the 4 surveys at once while you're in the office, and that way you're ready to go out into the field. Next. And I want to go over the curb ramp data collection guide again, because that's the one that Kayla will be giving a live demo on. This guide provides a data collection sequence diagram as a suggested method to locate curb ramps to be surveyed. Okay, so you're at a 4-way intersection. The diagram provides a symbol of a 4-way intersection. And each corner provides a curb ramps on each corner, and they're all numbered clockwise. So it gives an example of that the survey should do it systematically. That they shouldn't just arbitrarily go from corner to corner and and do each curb ramp. But it recommends the method that they should do it on. It's just to make it just a suggestion that they should, this is how they should be done. Also, the guide also provides 3 pages of curb ramp examples to assist the surveyor in identifying the curb ramp types. It also provides a curb ramp nomenclature diagram and descriptions to identify curb ramp elements. That's the diagram I showed you earlier. It had all the elements on it. It also provides the sketch numbers for measurement questions diagram and measurement questions in sketch numbers table, and we'll discuss those below. It also provides descriptions for all curb ramp distresses, and also lists all 36 questions in the guide. So in case the survey needs to reference them for some reason, the 2 samples are provided here of what's in that list. Next, please. And here's the measurement questions in sketch numbers table. As you see, here's the measurement questions. All 20 are listed here, and they're listed by order of appearance in the curb ramp survey. So the first measurement question that comes up is measure curb ramp opening with a gutter. And the sketch match number is on the right. So if the survey doesn't know what that means, doesn't know what that has to measure, he'll go to the sketch and look at sketch match number 6 to know what he needs to measure. The survey needs to measure. Next, please. And here's the diagram, sketch numbers for measurements questions diagram. You'll see number 6 is listed right there in the middle of the diagram. That's what the survey should measure. If he wants to measure the width at the gutter, curb ramp width at the gutter. And all these symbols you see here are referred to in the questions. The diagram also provides a legend. What is the slope measurement and what is the dimension measurement? So you'll know the difference. I'm actually updating this diagram. I borrowed this diagram from a paper survey that I used to build up this app, and so I want to improve the imagery and all that so that it's much more readable for the user, for the surveyor. And next, and I'm done now, and now it's time for the live demo that Kayla will run through. So are you ready, Kayla?
All right, Brad, you just need to make me presenter.
Okay.
I'll just mention that after Kayla's done, we'll have an opportunity for questions and comments.
Okay. Should be all set.
Okay. Just allowing some settings on. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So you go to whatever app store you use, Google Play or the Apple Store, and you search Survey 123, download the app, and usually it appears on your home screen unless you change your settings. So you just open it up. And if it's the first time you're using the app, you'll usually have to allow it to access, your photos, your videos, your files, allow it to take pictures and videos if you'll want to take pictures and videos, which is tied into the surveys, and I think it's a great feature. It's a good reminder when you get back into the office of what you were actually doing out in the field that day. You will also usually have to allow it your location. You want to sign in with ArcGIS Online, and the credentials are supplied in the user manuals. We created one for Apple devices and one for Android devices. The look and feel of the apps may be a little bit different, but the functionality is the same. So when you sign in, when it signs in, you'll be brought to this, so you have to allow the device location. You'll be brought to this default page. You see no surveys, because no surveys have been downloaded onto your device. You just click download surveys, and you will see a list of surveys that are available to you. And the top 4 are the ones that we made for the ADA public right-of-way surveys. We're just going to download the first 2 because there's really no need to walk through all 4 of them. And the reason that we're doing, and they appear on your device. And the reason that we're doing the 2 is curb ramps and the other 2 surveys, with the pedestrian signals and the crosswalks, those are point-based, while the sidewalks are line-based, and the data collection, like the location data, is a little bit different. So it's good to note that there are settings, and you can find it by clicking the top right and then settings. And here you can change a lot of different things. But a good thing to note is the location. You can add a Bluetooth receiver, external Bluetooth receiver if you have one, which is good because it can allow for sub-meter resolution data collection. And you could also, play with other settings like text if you want bigger text, and accessibility if you find that, the black text on white is hard to read. So going back to the surveys, we'll start with the curb ramp. The way that I'm going to be doing this is assuming that you'll have data the entire time, but if you don't want to be using your data and you want to be doing it offline, you open up the survey, you click the menu, go to offline maps, and you can download data and imagery for your area of interest that day. And that way you won't have to be using your cell data or your device's data. You can collect the data offline, and then once you go back into the office, then you'll go and sync the data. And it's a pretty quick and easy process once you have the internet. So starting the surveys, open the survey. And like George said, a lot of the questions depend on other questions. So if you answer yes or no, that might affect the other questions that you'll see. So, if there's a ramp, if there's a curb where there shouldn't be a curb, it'll kind of block out the other questions and you won't even see them. But if there isn't one, then there will be more questions. So the questions, are drop down, yes or no's, and text, where you can, write in your notes. And almost every single question has a note section if you want to put notes. So like I said, I'm going to put yes, and other questions, or is it the opposite? Other questions will appear. And you see these stars, that means the question is required and I have to answer the question. And you should really want the location of where the curb is, and you just click on it, and it automatically, if you've allowed the device, if you've allowed the app to access your device's location, it should just kind of bring you to where you are. And once you're satisfied, or you can even change the base map if you want, the ortho imagery, to make sure your GPS is super accurate. You change the base map, zoom in, and once you're satisfied, you can click the check mark, and that will tie the data that you're collecting to this point in space. You can also add pictures, videos, other files that you may have stored on your device, like plans or anything. This might be very slow. And like George said, a lot of the questions will refer back to that data collection guide. So strongly recommended that you use the data collection guide while you're doing this survey. It'll help you answer the questions. So once you're done completing the survey, you can either send it now and submit it right away. You realize, oh wait, I pressed the submit button by accident, but I still want to write a note. You just say continue the survey, you add in your notes, and then you're good to go. Or you can just say, you know what, I really messed up on this one. I just want to, I can save it and then delete it later on. I'll save in the inbox. So that's really it for the point data. The sidewalks, like I said, the data collection is a little bit different because it's a line instead of a point. But the functionality of submitting the questions and inputting the questions are the same. And so I saved that past one into my inbox, but if I had sent it, pretty much it would have synced right away to the cloud, and then when I got back to the office, I can access it when I need it. But I could do it immediately if I wanted to. But if I was doing it offline, then when I got back in the office, I'd have to sync it. While we wait for this, are there any questions? Oh, okay. So with the sidewalks, like I said, they're lines. So you just click on the sidewalk location button, zoom in to your point of interest. And the base map, changing it to the satellite imagery is very helpful in this situation. And even though there's not a sidewalk, let's say there's a sidewalk on Abbott, and so you just press the squiggly line down at the bottom, and you just go ahead and draw in where your sidewalk is. So it goes to the intersection, and then you press the check mark to submit that location. And then, like if I you fill in your information and try to submit it, and it says, there's this red star question that I didn't fill in an answer for. It said this is a required question, so submitting it is kind of a good check to make sure that you filled in all the required fields. And I'm definitely not going to fill in all of these questions. And then when you try to get out, it asks you if you want to close and lose my changes, which I'm going to do, continue the survey, or save in drafts. Like if you get a call from your kid's school and they have to be picked up immediately and you can't finish the survey right now, you can always come back to it to finish it up at a later time and date. So that concludes my demo. If there's any questions, go ahead and shoot. Oh, also, I'd just like to say that like this app can really be tailored to any paper surveys. So if you find yourself or your organization repeatedly doing paper surveys throughout the year, we can digitize that paper survey into a digital form, so you don't have to be dealing with all that paper all the time.
Okay, any questions for Kayla or George? No? Thank you, George. Thank you, Kayla, for that.
Can I add something, Brad?
Yeah. What's up?
We've shared this presentation with two communities, Air and Athol, and they were both very enthusiastic about using the app to collect this kind of data. Both are working on their transition plans, and so I believe that they haven't started yet, but I believe that they will be using the app to collect data, and so we look forward to that. And
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. All right, next on the agenda is contract status reports, FTA and Regional Transit Authority. So, George Cahaley. There you go, George.
Really, not much update, but I like to say MART has a new member now. Barry has, town of Barry has voted to join MART. MART now there will be 23 towns and cities. Other than that, really, I don't have too much.
Any questions for George regarding MART or FTA? Oh, okay, then goes on to Mass DOT, and that would be mine. Just a few items. The staff is still back in the office on a limited basis. Individual attendance right now is up to the staff member. However, all employees will be required to return to the office on July 12th. MRPC's office will also reopen to the public on July 12th, 2021. The MRPC also is drafting up a work from home policy that will hopefully benefit both the employees and the commission. So that will be coming shortly. The MPO voted last month on May 19th to endorse the FFY 2022 to 2026 Montachusett Transportation Improvement Program and the FFY 2022 Unified Planning Work Program. So these documents are either up on our website right now, or they will be shortly, and they will become effective on October 1st, 2021. The Montachusett MPO is scheduled to meet next week on June 16th at 1 p.m. However, there is a chance that the meeting will be canceled. At this time, there are no action items or time-sensitive issues that need to be addressed. Final decision will be made by tomorrow, and notices will be sent out either way to notify people of the meeting or the cancellation. Additionally, the executive order from Governor Baker regarding COVID-19 restrictions is due to end all restrictions on June 15th. That means unless there is an extension or some quick legislative action, Public meetings will require an in-person quorum, as the existing open meeting law states. For the MPO, that will require 6 of the 10 signatories being present in person. At Mass DOT's request, we are polling MPO signatories and designees on whether they would be comfortable meeting in person next week, or whether they would feel uncomfortable and wouldn't prefer not to meet in person. As of now on our poll, we're running 12 indicating they have no problem meeting in person and 1 with concerns. In regards to the MJTC, we require 4 member communities present, with 3 communities and 1 organization for a quorum. So if there are no changes to the open meeting law, we'll end up having 4 member communities at least showing up in person. We'll monitor things and let members know if there are any changes in how we will proceed. But one thing is for sure, we will continue to provide a remote participation option for individuals so they can remote into the meeting. Then one other item, appointment forms for the MJTC for the 2021 to 2022 year went out late last month, the middle of last month, to the communities, to the boards of selectmen and planning boards, and they also went out to our MRPC organizations, asking them to nominate someone to be their representative or to maintain the existing representative. To date, we've had 9 responses from 7 communities and 2 organizations. I will plan on sending out a reminder maybe by the end of this week or early next week to the communities. So if you know about this, just let your be on the lookout for either the planning board or the board of selectmen receiving this email asking them to notify us of their member. So just be on the lookout for it. So in case you see it, you could actually process it with the boards, so that we can get an existing list of individuals for the MJTC. And that's all I have on MassDOT. Are there any questions from anyone? No? Great. Next item on the agenda is administrative matters, the next MJTC meeting. Right now it's scheduled for July 14th at 2:30 p.m. And as we mentioned, one of the first items on the agenda will be the election of officers. Also discuss typically what we've done in the past is as the year winds down in the fall, there's a slowdown in actions that are needed by the MJTC and the MPO, and we have in the past gone to an every other month meeting schedule. So we'll discuss that at the July meeting, and if we follow the same pattern before, we'll have August off, meet in September, be off in October, meet in November, and then be off in December. And then come the first of the year, when the TIP process starts up again, we'll probably be meeting every month. But that's just a little heads up on what's coming down the road. Any questions from anybody at this time? No?
Question from Townsend, if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
The grant that you're submitting, do you need anything from the municipalities? The planning grant for RAISE, you were going to submit a couple of things, but I know one of them was from was the climate resilience and vulnerability.
Yep.
So you need anything from us?
At this point, I'm not sure. We're going through the application process internally, and we'll hopefully, if we need letter of support, we'll let the communities know at least a week before the end of the month, so we can start the whole process and make sure we get what we need. But we'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That being it, if there's no objections, we'll adjourn the meeting. Okay. Well, thank you all for attending, and we'll see you next month.